I know how this sounds. That title alone is problematic, and I understand everything I'm going to say to you will sound totally crazy. Yet I want you to listen to me. I don't think any about you will trust me yet. I'm letting you know right now, I didn't intend for any of this to happen. Simply allow me an opportunity to account for myself at all. Began with a contention yet that was typical for R and me while revision. He did a large portion of the contending while I just stayed there crushed. "Maddie, come on." He moaned, his hands flying up high as we ease back and eventually stop at a red light. "And don't behave as you don't have the foggiest idea what you're doing. Circumventing an apparel, appreciate that his fingers pulled at the material of my dress prior to proceeding with. Glance at you, you're asking for consideration. No big surprise, Spencer couldn't keep his eyes off you, his hand. Thrown down on the guiding wheel furiously, the activity making me recoil, yet that is my dearest companion. Maddie, listen. I'm sorry, I didn't have any idea what I was wearing would create such a situation. Truth be told, I wasn't sorry. As a matter of fact, I was drained, I was worn out. Tired and finished with his bull poo. I was all wearing a plain dark dress. Sure, it embraced my bends, yet there was nothing uncovering about it in the smallest. Don't cracking, give me that poop. You knew precisely exact thing you were doing the second that the light become green. His foot pushed down in the gas pedal. Hard, the vehicle reeled to consideration as he grasped the wheel. His knuckles white and his jaw gripped red. Please, I would rather not battle. Can we please? Only a hard smack stung my face, the horrendous braking sound filling the quietness of the vehicle. I was stunned. He hadn't at any point laid a hand on me. The stinging sensation made my eyes water. A little murmur got away from my lips as I wheezed discreetly, the torment transmitting across my face, and afterward came the conflict sensation of something dribbling from my nose and onto my new dark dress. "You merit that." Red jeered at me practically like he was consoling himself that his activities were legitimized. "Carry on like one, and you'll get dealt with like one too." I just stayed there embarrassed. My hands swiped at the blood as my eyes battled to keep down tears they were taking steps to spill. And the last thing that I needed was so that him might see me cry. So I did the main thing that I could imagine. "Red, could you at any point, if it's not too much trouble, pull over at the service station around there? I want to go to the restroom." Mama staggered over my words, apprehensively trusting that he would listen. I was shocked when he consented, his lime green Camaro skidding to a stop in one of the parking spots close to the front of the corner store. The second that he tossed it in park, Rodent investigated over at me and said no fooling around, and afterward he had the chaperone working the counter. The person was recognizable, Aaron Waterways. He was in my mysterious examinations and Para's brain research class. In the event that I see you conversing with him any longer than needed, I will not hold back to come in there and get you myself with a KN of my head. I went to open the entryway before he pulled me back down and snatched my jawline. My hand shook somewhat before I understood what he was doing. He swiped a finger right in front of me, tidying up the proof of his maltreatment before he looked over at Aaron again. "Pick up the pace. I would rather not be over here the entire evening holding back away." I gestured and rushed into the service station. Aaron rushed to welcome me, yet I waved him off as I dashed to the rear of the store and went to the restroom. The second that I stepped in, I separated. Wretched cries racked my body as I looked for a slowdown to plunk down in the primary. Citi's latrine was obstructed tissue and excrement drifting around. In the bowl, like a thickened, earthy-colored stew, in the subsequent slowdown was a wreck female items spilling over from a little garbage bin close to the latrine, ridiculous tampons drawn across the floor, like a crime location scene. And the third slowdown was most shockingly clean. A breath of help left my lips as I rushed into it and locked the entryway as I plunked down on the latrine with my head in my grasp. Sobbing like a child, I was going after the tissue to dry my eyes when I saw something peculiar. The initial two slows down showed up as though they had been better, the paint chipped and the equipment broken or harmed. They were likewise painted a muffled shade of blue and dissimilar to the initial two. The one that I was in was painted a splendid shade of fire engine red. However, that wasn't the thing truly grabbed my attention. It was the number and message gazing back at me from the slow down entryway. Wish you could call this number and wish things right. The number. Recall beneath those peculiar words, gazed back at me temptingly as I cleared the remainder of the détachés from my eyes. I mulled over calling it, my misery gradually softening into outrage. I tore my telephone, liberated from my tote, pondering every one of the times the rodent had caused me to feel dumb, embarrassed. He caused me to feel like an object, like I was simply something that he could utilize and afterward throw when he was done. I recalled the communication that we had 5 minutes prior, the way that he didn't actually hold back to slap me. I punched the number into my telephone, grasping it firmly, my hands shaking as I hung tight for a response. I knew precisely exact thing I was going to want for her, the words battling to push past my lips. I simply didn't have the foggiest idea how I needed to word them the second that the telephone was replied. However, I stopped a murmur drifting over the line. Wish you could call this number and wish things right. The fluorescent lighting of the restroom gleamed briefly as a chill settled over my body, goosebumps creeping up my arms. I wished that red cares would. My voice faltered as I battled to coarseness out the words between ground teeth, my anger stewing hazardously near rage. I wish he would. Dissatisfaction rose and spilled over as I punched the slow-down entryway and shouted into the collector. I wish you would. Cracking excursion over a fork and kick the bucket or something. My voice rang out brutally, reverberating off of the foul restroom walls. Furthermore, spiraling surrounding me the second everything went calm, my chest hurling as I battled to control my breathing. I saw the light over my head gleam again. A pop sounded via telephone, my hands mishandling to hold it nearer to my ear. I sat tight for just a second prior to I heard it wish conceded, and afterward the call disengaged. I pulled the telephone away. From my face took a full breath and I rested against the slowdown. I realized that it was most likely some dumb, phony, pre-recorded message or something. However, now that I'd moved that out into the open, I improved a turn of my heel. I came to open the entryway and froze the number, and the secretive message were no longer there. As a matter of fact, the entryway was entirely perfect and blue, my brain was turning. Yet, I didn't have long to ponder that. Before Rhett's name streaked up at me on my telephone, my eyes DEI to the time 11:11 p.m. Goodness shoot. I'd been in here for a really long time. Dread flowed through me the second that I mixed to answer a conciliatory sentiment, previously moving barely out of reach of my mind, read, "I'm so hello, I came in to get a few nachos, and I understood that I failed to remember my wallet at the party. Spencer said that he would carry it to me tomorrow. However, I want you to recognize several bucks, a moan of help," and blew past my lips as I pushed open the slowdown and strolled towards the restroom entryway. Sure, definitely I can do that. The subsequent I ventured out, I dug through my handbag for $2 or $3 prior to making a beeline for Rodent. He was remaining at the cheddar machine, a storing pile of fluid gold sparkling upon layers of chiabs. May he turned his blame, shifting toward the bundled plastic utensils. "Might you at any point get me one of those? This service station cheddar adheres to your fingers like concrete." Mai delivered the cash and gestured and got one of the bundles. I began to open up it for him before he yanked it, no longer any of my concern, and went to make a beeline for the money. Yet again register before he could make it. However, I froze, staggered, when he turned and slipped on a puddle on the floor. A dazzling yellow wet floor sign glared up at him as he slid, practically dropping his nachos in the process. He did anyway. Drop his utensils. I trusted that a series of condemnations will fly from his lips before he ventured forward and stumbled once more, and I remained there in stunned quietness this time, not on the grounds that he had caught, but sense of what he had stumbled over sickened. I watched the horrifying scene unfurl before me, my eyes as wide as saucers, and my eyebrows lifted. One of my hands flew up to cover my mouth. It resembled it occurred in sluggish movement. All at once his foot stumbled over the fork, catapulting it out of sight briefly, the prongs looking towards the sky before Red arrived on it with a crash. A noisy, substantial crash. The subsequent, it pierced through the vein in his neck. It was a slaughter. Dark red splattered up like a wellspring prior to pooling around him. It was absolutely impossible that anybody would accept this. However, at that point I recollected Aaron remaining opposite me. Aaron looked at me, and afterward a rodent dread flowed through me as I watched Rhett gag and falter before he at last laid still. That ought to have been unimaginable. I actually intend what were the possibilities of that event. Aaron rushed to hurry to guide my legs out of nowhere, feeling like hard no. Oh, I had never seen such a lot of blood the second that he directed me to the workplace toward the back and put me down. I had passed unconscious. I don't have the foggiest idea how long I was out yet. I stirred to Aaron's voice, tenderly cajoling me conscious once I at last stripped up to my eyes. I saw that he was hunkered down before me, yet regardless of what I did, I just couldn't free my psyche of the picture of Red's blood saturating the groot, smudging it red. It was only after Aaron had delicately tapped my leg and talked that I had acknowledged it was all my shortcoming. "Maddie," he said, his voice smooth and delicate. My eyes met as warm, earthy colored ones, that terrible premonition in my stomach, starting to spread as contemplations went around my head like a train. Every one of them taking off the tracks. I had brought this upon him. I had called that number. I had made that wish. You realize, he began his voice, breaking me from my craziness. His hand came up to fold a strand of hair behind my ear. It serves him right, actually. My forehead's wrinkled and my relaxing stilled. What do you mean it's what you wanted for, isn't it? His eyes sparkled at me devilishly, the solace from prior to being all supplanted with something significantly more vile fear. I didn't mean I'd faltered yet. I did the number on the restroom, slow down the words that I had expressed angrily, the wish that he be the one to make it happen, and assuming this is the case. "How don't stress over it," Aaron murmured. "I've previously dealt with everything the guilty conscience is, not yours." Disarray poured at me, turning and twisting around my psyche until I was at last ready to push what I had been figuring past to shaking laps. "What did you do?" He opened the workplace entryway, pointing towards the garbage sack sitting right beyond it. "Recall everything he said to you in the vehicle. Assuming you behave that way, you'll get dealt with like one too." He stopped. Does that ring a bell? Outrage and humiliation consumed at my cheeks. I didn't have any idea what to say, how he realized that was past me. Yet hearing it used to be terrible enough. Hearing it 2 times was like getting slapped once more. "Listen," Aaron began, hand coming up to cut my face. His thumb delicately brushed over my cheek, the very one that Red had slapped the skin furious and red carry on like rubbish. He murmured, the corners of his lips pulling up into an insidious smile, "And you'll get dealt with like it."